Perflow explores topics around healthcare, well-being, oncology, and integrative medicine from the perspectives of Dr. Paul Chen, a UK-based general practitioner who has a specialist interest in well-being, lifestyle medicine, longevity, and cancer care, and Dr. Wafaa Abdelhadi, an integrative oncologist in Egypt who specializes in functional medicine and applied metabolic therapy. The content is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. While we discuss evidence, professional experience, and reflective insights, listeners should always consult a qualified healthcare professional regarding any medical concerns or decisions about their health. Opinions expressed on the podcast are our own and do not replace guidance from your own healthcare providers. Every health journey is unique. We encourage listeners to take what resonates and seek support when needed.
Welcome back. We're now today talking about social connection, Wafaa. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Part of the meds to the power 3.
How the 3, exactly. I think it's an interesting topic because we all know it's important, but at least in the healthcare setting, we don't necessarily spend a lot of time trying to get patients to be more aware of it. At least I find it difficult. Difficult's too strong a word. I find it tricky sometimes to put it into the conversation because it may not resonate very well where I can't reel off facts, for instance. I think one thing that I can remember, before we do that, we have to talk about what we did last time, accountability. So Wafaa, what did you do?
Yeah, so I actually I got my blue blockers out of my drawer just to put them next to the TV. So every time that I watch TV or I'm after night, so now I'm using my blue blockers more. So now I'm more, Tony Stark, and it gives me more, Tony Stark is a scientist, and it puts me like in the mood of making more things. And then I bought those candles. Those are non-toxic candles. This one with a precious amber scent, because of course candles can be toxic, the fumes and whatever material is using. So one of my friends, actually, she's a doctor, and she has a hobby of making things with her hands. So she's now doing candles from non-toxic material, and she actually ran them by me. And so now I'm starting to turn on the candle at night, putting on my blue blockers and just relaxing. So a lot of things, not just sleep.
And have you managed to tap into your theta waves to have some eureka moments and good thoughts?
Not yet. I have to be honest. So I have to you cannot do everything at the same time, but practice makes you better. So we start with the small things and we add on without being. The problem, Paul, is that I don't think that we are managing, like back in the old days, we had a lot of time, like the hours were longer. But I believe that these days the hours are shorter. I know that this sounds crazy, but the amount of things that I used to do in 1 hour back in the old days were enormous, including, by the way, social connections, meeting up with people, having to do work, studying, all of these things. Social connections was very important. So I'm very happy that we're discussing that in this episode. However, I want to see what you did in your sleep.
Well, we're doing the podcast, so I managed to sleep an hour early. I think I've been, again, more mindful, particularly is trying to think about the value of it. So whatever helps, or whatever little helps to making sure that I do what I say I do, and keeping it in my forefront of my brain here to think, yes, I need to go to bed. So still work in progress. I haven't mastered the art. And again, listeners, we are all human. So bear note, sometimes you'll have your good days, hopefully more. Sometimes you have your bad days. That's life, right? So it's just getting the right balance and then seeing it through. Okay, so social connections. So I was just thinking to myself, what sort of things do I do see in my day-to-day as a general practitioner? Well, I'm also a college doctor for 2 of the colleges at the university. And of course, a lot of the student health tends to be about mental health. I often talk about, of course, the lifestyle aspects, maybe psychological therapy input and medication. And when we're talking about the lifestyle bit, I also talk about, I'll ask the students, have you I mean, let's say, for instance, they've just started university, they may be having a bit of imposter syndrome and struggling to navigate having to rely with the new university lifestyle, not having acquired the self-reliance, the self-responsibility, all the other aspects, trying to make new friends, etc. So I do actually ask them, separate to the more traditional stuff about the sleep, etc. I think it's important to then ask them, which I do say, well, have you made friends? And often they'll say, yeah. And I said, well, have you made friends that you can then confide in and talk about a lot of things? And sometimes they're slightly a bit puzzled, but they said, yeah, so it's okay. And I might then ask this, well, can you try to be more proactive in socializing? Because I think there's a lot of value in it. Sometimes it's quite hard, I guess, to be able to give a metric to then say to what degree does this then equate to better health? But I think we've all been in a situation where we know that when we're exposed is probably the wrong word, but when we're interacting with our friends, we feel happier. And we know that if you took some bloods and we did we checked your immune cells, like your B cells and your T cells, your NK cells, etc. It's too much detail, but I'm sure they'll go up. And I think it's really important to put sufficient value on social connection, particularly in a day and age where there's a lot of issues about social isolation. I think the COVID pandemic made it very apparent with the issues of increased incidence and prevalence of mental health just went shot up. And all that isolation meant that we missed the human contact. And we are creatures, we are human beings, and we are social creatures. And I think it's really important for that. So as part of my lovely colleague and friend and my social connection, Wafaa, what do you think?
Well, you know me, Paul. I love people. I love being with people actually makes me thrive, you know? Being with the good people, of course, because I had once this lecture and I actually asked some of my patients, you know, when you have that person who calls you and whenever he calls you or you see him, it gives you like the goosebumps and you get like, so one of the things I do is that detox from bad friends and keep the good ones. Because if you keep seeing that friend who gives you like bad feelings and then you stay with the bad feelings for the rest of the day, it will impact all the immune system, your neurotransmitters, all of these things, even the gut microbiome because of the gut brain connections. So social connection is extremely important. I'm different from my brothers and sisters. I was the most social daughter in my family. I used to play basketball. I used to play ping pong. I used to play tennis. I used to I was the piano player in the school. We used to sing. It's fantastic, and that brought me joy. When I went to medical school, which is very tough, as you all know, we made that new social connection. So it's very important. It's a personality issue. So I do not want to categorize personalities into someone who is extrovert and introvert. However, even that introvert person can teach themselves how to be, as they call it, extrovert or make the social connections. I was the one back in school whom, whenever there's a new student coming to class, I used to be the one looking after him and preventing any bullies from attacking him. So it depends on that person. And then I teach. I used to teach them how to make new friends, etc. And but then things happen with the COVID, and now we are trying to reignite that passion about social connection again. There are a lot of online meetings that we do, as this one, for instance, the podcast, but it's not like meeting in person. But at least I'm seeing you, I'm seeing Elliot, I'm talking to my friends, and so this actually makes, instead of you just sitting alone doing nothing or reading a book. Do you remember last week we talked about this Harvard study 2024 about researchers agree that social connection help people live longer and healthier lives, and that being socially disconnected, for example, is associated with risks of illnesses, including heart disease, stroke, anxiety, depression, dementia, and even up to cancer. So what do you know about this? Because I know that you are the expert in longevity with your Oxford longevity project.
Well, for the listeners, first things first, Doc's longevity project. It's basically at the moment a community interest company, but it's a gathering of. I'm very privileged to be in the company of the great minds, but my colleagues and I have launched this platform that basically is to serve the public and to enable them to learn smarter ways of living longer and in better health. And being in the longevity space, yes, the Harvard study, I mean, there are a few studies that show that social connection, purpose and meaning in life, being happy, all these have its positive outcomes. But on the flip side, of course, when we lack it, then we know that it links to, I mean, the stats are really bad in terms of even social isolation can be nearly equivalent to as bad as smoking, for instance. And Wafaa, as you said, dementia risk, cancer risks, cardiovascular risks. And I think premature death can go up to something like 29% or something like that. I can't remember the statistics. But all these things, I mean, it's sometimes quite difficult to know in your youth to then say, okay, well, I'm on this treadmill of life. Yeah, a lot of stresses come my way. I need to do the next thing. I haven't got time to make friends. Yes, I got my work colleagues, but yeah, I don't really classify them as my friends. And I think you need to be intentional to try to then carve out good friendships and sustain them. And I think that then has a positive ripple effect. Because if you are happy, I think most people will appreciate the fact that if you're surrounded by people who are happy, by default, it's very difficult for you to be sad. Yeah. Similarly, if you're surrounded by people who are very, very sad, I mean, you get pulled down as well. And so I think choose wisely. But also, I think if we take it on a more personal level, I think in terms of culturally, I think we're in a time where I think having meals together has become less common in the family gathering setting. I think in the more of the Oriental cultures, I think there's still the high regards to that sort of family hierarchy, but the fact that you respect the elders. So there's that community feel already with the social connection within your own family. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to be family first, then friends. Again, and that's become sort of diluted out purely by the nature of how society runs at the moment. And I think in terms of the human interaction side of things, because we're so focused on the next thing, there's social media, there's computers, we can lean into the tech like what we're doing at the moment, like you said. But I think it's sometimes harder to be in the right place in the right moment to make those social connections. But I say that with a pinch of salt because that's your choice. And I think it's important to then say, okay, can I proactively make that decision to lean into my anxious discomfort? Because you use the word introvert, extrovert. Yeah. So you might have a personality where you don't feel very comfortable. But if you can then again ascribe positive meaning to having then gone out to a book club or I don't know, singing or a dance class, and then you make some friendships. I mean, sometimes patients come back and I ask them, they've done this, and they go, "How was it?" I said, "I loved it." And it's really nice. So it's quite satisfying because it's not yet another medication. It's just a concept to then say, why didn't you do this? And sometimes I flip it on its head and I say, well, what do you think you might be able to do as a part of a motivational interviewing strategy? And they might say, I could do this, couldn't do this. And I'll say, well, if you score out of 10, how confident are you to doing this? And usually the trick is they might say, oh, I'm about 7 out of 10 confident I can go to the choir or the gym or whatever. And I say, well, why is it 7 and not 6? And then usually the patients will then have to then think, no, but I know it's really important because I need to do, and there's value in it. And so the trick is for them to then feel as if they've thought about the reason why it's valuable and then harbor their intrinsic motivation. But that's sort of the tricks of the trade of the general practice consultation. That's sort of by the by. But I do think it's really, really important with the social connection equal to all the other stuff that we've been talking about and continue to do so. In your day-to-day, Wafaa, so moving on, I guess, what do you do to harness your social connection?
Well, for family comes first. And as you mentioned, the meal setting is extremely important. However, because of our I am mostly, the mother is always in the Eastern society, is the one who stays mostly at home looking after the kids. So I make sure whenever possible that we are on the table at the same time. My not always that the father is there because he's working or outside, but at least we have 1 or 2 meals per week where we're all sitting on the dining table. Of course, with the new era of social media and every kid has a phone in their hand, they some families actually let their when I go to like a big family gathering and we're sitting on the dining table, they let their kids use their phones. But I actually step up and I'm like the evil aunt or the evil relative, and I say, no phones on the dining table, we are here to see each other's. And I actually collect the phones from them and I put them on a side table because we need to interact with each other's. So at least once per week, if not twice, I am like lucky to be sitting with my family on the dining table and having non-inflammatory foods.
For the listeners, how do you do the other side? So when you're, I mean, sometimes this is not very scientific, but you have the chemistry and the negative vibe for someone you feel a bit tricky. And sometimes, I mean, we forge a interpretation or an idea of a person on our first impression. But how do you go about the other end where you feel, this person's a bit tricky? How do I establish that social connection that's positive?
Well, I stay away as much as possible and I don't think about them. But if that person is at work, it's tricky. If that person is at the social gatherings, it's a little bit tricky, but you have to train your mind that you will not be actually taking any negative vibes out of them. Because sometimes I think about it this way, that some of those people, they actually, I don't know if this is correct or I should be saying it in the podcast or whatever, but I do believe that at the end of the day, we are energy vessels. So we actually exchange our energies. Like when you said, like when you're around happy people, you get happy. When you're around sad people, you get happy. So you get sad, sorry. So I think that if you can block that energy transmission, by telling yourself that, or just avoiding them, and even if they're around, just go talk to a happy person. I do that most of the time because you cannot live in utopia all the time with happy people. So, but most of the time, yani, alhamdulillah, thank God, I choose the right people to be with. Life is so busy, as we mentioned, so you don't have the time to go somewhere else. And we try as much as possible to surround our family and friends and our kids with the right people. How about you? You have two backgrounds. So you are Japanese and you are also British. So tell me about.
I like the balloons going there. Yeah. So the Japanese one's interesting because I'm not actually by nationality, but I've been raised in Japan. I'm fluent. So from the Oriental culture, I guess that's an interesting one because I do value family a lot, although there's the geographical distance of being based in the UK. I think the other bit that's quite interesting is with the patients side of things, the connection bit. I make it a thing, and I've sort of played around with this. And again, this is not really scientifically based, I guess, but as a philosophy, and I've tried to imbue this to my daughter, I say that try to see the best in others and try to be kind to others. And I think that, in a way, has a positive ripple effect on forging good social connections. Social connections, again, there's the patient-doctor relationship aspects of things, but within my wider community of friends and family, I mean, Wafaa, when I met you, I mean, straight away I knew, this person's amazing. Yeah, and that's not even saying a single word. Even my wife says that. And of course, sometimes you can get it with this energy to then say this person has a positive vibe or whatever you want to call it, right? So I think it's really important. I mean, I think there's a motivational speaker, entrepreneur called Jim Rohn, and the saying is something like, you are the average of your 5 closest friends. And I think it's quite nice to know that, if that's a fact. I don't know how scientific it is. I sometimes mention to my patients as well, obviously surround yourself in good company. Particularly if, let's say, for instance, a patient is really struggling with alcohol and drugs, for instance. When I mention this, I just say, if you're surrounded by that, you're going to really struggle, aren't you? That makes a lot of sense. But on a personal level, I'm very, very privileged. We briefly touched upon the longevity project. So Sir Christopher Ball is now 90. He's my mentor. We've got Sir Mia, who's, I think, 81. We've got Professor Dennis Noble, who's turning 90. Leslie is younger. I won't disclose her age. But there's 5 of us in the mix, and we've got Kat in the background as well. But I learn a lot from them. Admittedly, from the age perspective, they're ahead of the game. So they've got a lot of wise words, wisdom, and experience that I can try to absorb as much as possible. But it just means that I can hire and level myself up and learn on the go. So I think from the listener's perspective, I think what's really important is have a bit of a think of the friends and family members that you love, but also try to ascribe really good meaning to it and surround yourself. If you're finding that you're somewhat isolated, surround yourself with good friends and better friends. I mean, to a certain degree, of course, you may have friends. I mean, in your childhood, you might say in primary school, we're best friends forever. And the reality is that as we go and grow up, we have different circle of friendships. And of course, that will evolve over the course of time. And I think it is important to be open-minded about that, saying that life is a transitional process where it's eternal learning. But again, I think if you surround yourself with the right people, and it's not about right and wrong, but the appropriate people that match you in time and space for where you are in your journey of life, I think that then means that you then elevate yourself to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I resonate a lot with what you're saying, Paul, and I hope that our listeners can resonate with that too. One of the things that I love is I don't have any grandparents, but my mother's uncle was still alive back in the old days, and I used to enjoy just having my bicycle going with him and watch him do the gardenings. His gardening, he had like a beautiful garden, and don't forget, like, you get like now you're with the Sir Christopher, Dr. Dennis, and Dr. Muir. And when I met them last time, when I came to the summit, uh, I felt amazing. I felt joy. I felt grounding, and I just like see. I don't know how I feel, but I feel wonderful when I see old people, healthy old people, bringing, giving you the vibes, like their wisdom through the vibes of thousand, like not thousand, but the years that they have been, my God,
Cumulative.
experiencing. Yes, the experience. The experience is amazing. Like it's like you, Paul. Like I am sure that you and Elliot too are, your patients will be very lucky to see you because you give them the time, you give them the good vibes, and you give them the good advice, non-complicated ones. Just start with the basics, and that's what I hope everyone can do for themselves and then family and friends. Put on your oxygen mask first.
So given where things are, the usual bit is, Wafaa, what are you going to do, given that we're talking about social connections for next time?
I'm gonna use. So we are in Ramadan. I don't know when this podcast is airing, but being in Ramadan, and my WhatsApp messages gets flooded with the happy Ramadan, happy Ramadan, happy Ramadan. This is what I don't do. I wait for the Eid, which is the feast after breaking your fast. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna pick up the phone and call everyone that matters to me personally, instead of sending them message, and tell them how much they mean to me and wishing them a happy feast for Ramadan. That's in 1 week, hopefully.
That's nice. What am I going to do? Well, I mean, I'm already blessed. I feel very privileged with my social connections. So rather being in the survival mode. I generally feel I'm in the thriving or optimized mode. However, I think I'm going to take a personal touch. I do call my parents once a week, or once every fortnight. But I think I'll make an effort to speak to them a bit longer, so that they understand that I appreciate who they are as part of the social connection. Because I think I take it for granted that they're always there, that I'm here because of them. So I think that could be conveyed in a subtle way. And so I think I'm going to do that as part of my social connection. So on that note, listeners, I think it's your turn. Have a bit of a think about what you might be able to do to enhance or initiate your social connections. And then we'll see you soon. So on that note, bye for myself.
Adios from me.